Ethan's ship drifted into the remote asteroid outpost like a tired bird returning to a worn nest. He had been flying salvage routes for nearly a decade, hunting derelict ships and broken mining stations, trading scraps for credits. Most of his work was dull, predictable, and lonely, but it paid enough to keep him alive. Today, however, something felt different. The sensors on his ship flickered strangely as he approached the outpost, a warning that something unusual lay ahead. Ethan shrugged it off. He had seen plenty of strange things in the void, from rogue mining drones to tiny space whales that floated past wrecks. So a warning on a worn sensor panel was nothing to panic over. When he docked, the station was quiet to quiet. The usual hum of engines and chatter of workers was absent. A chill settled in his chest, though the station air was artificially warm. Ethan grabbed his tools and pack, checked the blaster at his hip, and stepped into the station. His boots clicked against the metal floor as he moved through empty corridors, scanning for any sign of life. Then a shadow moved. Ethan froze. He had seen many things, but the figure that emerged from the darkness made him take a step back. She was tall, taller than most humans, with powerful shoulders and a muscular build that spoke of relentless training. Her skin was a pale green with faint markings, almost like war paint, and her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, sharp and piercing. She wore armor that clinked lightly as she moved, and a curved blade hung at her hip. The alien warrior woman stopped a few feet away from him and studied him silently, like a predator sizing up prey. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice rough and commanding. "I'm just here to salvage," Ethan replied calmly, hands raised slightly to show he meant no harm. "Name's Ethan." Her eyes narrowed. "I am Maya," she said, stepping forward. Every step felt heavy, deliberate, like the ground itself obeyed her presence. "You will kneel, human, or I will kill you." Ethan did not move. He didn't flinch, and most importantly, he did not kneel. Instead, a small smile played on his lips, quiet and easy. Maya's hand tightened on her blade, her jaw tensing. "Human," she hissed, her tone sharp. "I will not ask again." "I'm listening," Ethan said, his smile steady. There was no fear in his eyes, only calm curiosity. Maya's instinct screamed at her. No human ever looked at a warrior like this without terror, without submission. Humans were weak, fragile, and predictable. Yet this one smiled. She could not understand it, and that puzzled her more than it angered her. "Then you will die," she said, raising her blade. Ethan only tilted his head slightly, still smiling. Maya lunged at him, fast and precise, her movements honed from years of battle. Ethan sidestepped, not with martial skill, but with timing and intuition. She stumbled slightly on the smooth metal floor, and in that instant, Ethan ducked under her swing. Keeping calm and letting her momentum carry her past him, they circled each other, eyes locked. Maya's chest heaved slightly, but her expression remained fierce. Ethan's calm was like a mirror, reflecting her own intensity back at her. "You are strange," Maya admitted. "Why do you not fear me?" Ethan shrugged lightly. "Fear doesn't solve problems," he said. "It just makes them bigger." The simplicity of his answer confused her further. It was not disrespect, it was not defiance, it was something else entirely. She could not name it, but it unsettled her. A warning alarm blared suddenly, echoing through the station. A group of Maya's soldiers entered the corridor, their weapons raised. They looked ready to fire, but Maya raised a hand. "Stop," she commanded. "Do not shoot." "Not yet." Ethan's smile widened faintly, just enough to show he understood the tension but did not panic. Maya studied him for a long moment before speaking again. "You will come with me," she said. "Alive. For now." Ethan nodded slowly, following her through the corridors. The soldiers fell in line behind them, tense and alert. Ethan noticed the glances the soldiers exchanged, fear, mixed with doubt. They were used to humans being weak, cowed, desperate. Ethan was none of these things. They arrived at a large chamber in the heart of the station. The walls were reinforced metal, lined with weapons and banners that marked Maya's clan. Ethan's eyes roamed the room, noting every detail. He was a salvage pilot, yes, but observation and analysis were skills he had refined over years. He noticed the tension in the soldiers' shoulders, the careful way they positioned themselves, faint insignias etched into the walls that told him of the clan's hierarchy. Maya gestured for him to sit. Ethan did, calmly folding his hands on his lap. The soldiers watched silently. Maya stepped forward, standing over him. "You are brave," she said, "or foolish. Perhaps both." "I like to think of it as persistence," Ethan replied. His voice was steady, unwavering. Maya frowned. "Persistence does not save you here." Ethan tilted his head. "Sometimes it does." The silence that followed was heavy. Maya studied him for several long moments, then turned abruptly. "Prepare him for the camp," she ordered the soldiers. "Keep him under watch. He is not to leave the station until I return." Ethan allowed himself a small sigh of relief. Not because he was safe, he wasn't, but because the first stage of survival was over. He had bought time. And in that time he would learn as the soldiers led him through dim corridors. Ethan noticed the subtleties of their behavior. They were efficient, disciplined, trained but fearful of their leader in a way humans might be of a god. They did not trust him, and they did not need to. But one or two of them seemed curious about him, watching how he moved, how he spoke, how he smiled even when cornered. The camp was a stark contrast to the sterile station. Large tents and hardened structures were arranged around a central fire pit. Warriors moved through the camp with purpose, but they paused to look at him. He could feel their judgment, their skepticism, their surprise. Humans were not welcome here, yet he was alive. That alone created a stir. Ethan was led to a tent where he would spend his first night as a captive. The interior was sparse, with a thin mattress and a small table. He sat down carefully, examining his surroundings, noting escape routes, potential dangers, and opportunities. Yet even as he planned, he remained calm. Fear, he reminded himself, never helped anyone that night. As the camp settled into quiet murmurs and low fires, Ethan's mind wandered. He thought of home, of empty streets, and the hum of engines in his old city. He thought of the humans he had known, their laughter, their small acts of bravery, and he thought of Maya. Fierce, proud, dangerous. A warrior who could kill him with ease, yet, for some reason, did not. He wondered why. Not out of arrogance, but out of curiosity. Humans were not the only species in the galaxy, and survival often meant understanding those who were different. Maya, he realized, was a puzzle, and he liked puzzles. Outside, the wind whistled through the outpost, carrying dust and echoes of distant battles long past. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, letting the calm settle over him. He knew this was only the beginning. Somewhere in the camp, Maya was watching, waiting, calculating, and he would need every bit of wit, skill, calm he possessed to navigate the days ahead. Yet, as he drifted to a light sleep, he allowed himself a small, quiet thought. A human could smile even in the face of death, and sometimes that smile could change everything. Ethan awoke to the smell of smoke and the faint clatter of weapons. The camp was alive, though the sound was different from the human settlements he had known. The rhythm was disciplined, precise, almost mechanical. Soldiers moved like well-oiled machines, practicing drills, maintaining their weapons, and whispering in a language Ethan did not know. A small figure approached his tent. Ethan squinted and saw one of the younger soldiers. Unlike the others, she did not carry a weapon, only a satchel with water and food. She paused at the entrance and nodded politely. Ethan smiled in return. "You may eat," she said in broken common, the human trade language. "But do not leave tent. Warrior watches."
"Thank you," Ethan replied.
"I'll stay." She nodded again, careful not to linger, and left. Ethan unpacked the simple meal. It was different from the rations he was used to, a mix of strange grains and lightly roasted protein, but it was edible. More than that, it was a gift, and he noted it. In survival, small details mattered. By mid-morning, Maya returned. She had been away, walking among her soldiers, checking defenses, speaking with elders, and inspecting training grounds. Her eyes were sharp, her armor brushed and polished, her blades strapped tightly at her side. Ethan felt the same calm stir in his chest he always did when meeting her. Alert, but not afraid. "You survived your first night," Maya said, her tone neutral. "That is acceptable." Ethan tilted his head. "I slept well. I like quiet." Maya's lips twitched. Not a smile, but a hint of curiosity. "Quiet is rare here," she said. "Do not mistake it for weakness. It is opportunity." Ethan nodded slowly. "I understand." Maya motioned for the soldiers around the tent to step back. She leaned on her blade slightly, studying him. "You will face the trials soon," she said. "They are not pleasant. They are designed to test strength, courage, and loyalty. Many die. Some falter. A few survive. If you live, you may walk freely. For a while, perhaps longer, but you will not bow. That is already proven." Ethan gave his small, confident smile again. "I don't intend to bow. I'll do what is needed." Maya's eyes narrowed slightly, but she did not speak further. She turned and left. The soldiers who remained outside the tent watched Ethan carefully, whispering among themselves. By midday, Ethan was escorted to a central training area. He had seen something like it before, a mix of gym and battlefield simulation. The ground was littered with logs, rocks, and metal structures. Several other aliens were there, stretching and practicing combat moves. Some noticed him immediately and tensed, but others ignored him. Ethan felt the weight of their gaze, their judgment, and he smiled again. Not arrogantly, just calmly. Maya's voice rang out across the field. "Human, stand in the center." Ethan obeyed. As he walked, some of the soldiers whispered about him. "He smiles," one said. "Even after surviving Maya's test." "That is dangerous," another replied. "A human should fear her." Ethan reached the center of the field. Maya stood across from him, her stance firm, her blade resting lightly at her side. She gestured for him to face a series of challenges, each designed to test different abilities: balance, speed, awareness, and problem-solving under pressure. The first challenge was a simple obstacle course. Logs, rocks, and metal beams required climbing, jumping, and careful timing. Most humans would struggle, but Ethan moved carefully, deliberately, and with patience. Where brute strength failed, he used observation and balance. A soldier tried to trip him with a hidden rope, but he noticed it just in time and leaped over it. Some of the younger soldiers gasped. Maya's eyes followed his every move, noting the calm efficiency of his body. Next came a trial of knowledge. Ethan was presented with strange devices, alien mechanisms, and puzzles. He did not understand the alien language fully, but he observed patterns and tested methods logically. Within minutes, he had solved the puzzles that had taken some soldiers hours. A few whispered nervously. This human was clever. Too clever. Finally, Maya had him attempt a combat simulation. She moved with deadly speed, forcing Ethan to dodge, block, and counter using his environment. The simulation was brutal. Rocks flew, blades swung, and the ground shifted unexpectedly. Ethan relied on timing, instinct, and patience. A small misstep could have cost him a broken arm, but he adapted. And the simulation ended with him still standing. Maya approached, her expression unreadable. "You live," she said. "That is more than I expected." Ethan gave a small nod. "I don't intend to die today." Maya's eyes flicked toward him, briefly softening. "You are. Strange, human. Most would beg. Most would bow. Most would hide in fear. You smile." "I believe in facing what comes," Ethan said. "Hiding doesn't solve anything." Maya turned abruptly, signaling for the soldiers to escort him back to his tent. The camp was quiet now, in contrast to the morning's drills. Ethan noticed the younger soldiers watching him as he passed. Some curiosity, some caution, and some admiration. As night fell, the wind howled over the outpost. Ethan had learned enough to survive. But he also realized he was beginning to understand the alien hierarchy, their fears and their strengths. He saw the soldiers whispering about him, the elders watching Maya, and the subtle ways in which the camp operated like a living organism. Every action had meaning. Every pause, every glance, every gesture spoke volumes. Late that night, Ethan heard a commotion outside his tent. He peeked through the flap and saw a small group of soldiers carrying a wounded child. The child was pale, weak, and trembling. Panic rippled among the soldiers. They were unsure how to handle this delicate life. Ethan's instincts kicked in. He stepped out. "Let me help," he said. The soldiers hesitated. Maya appeared shortly after, her expression sharp and questioning. "Human," she said, "this is not your concern." Ethan ignored her caution. He knelt beside the child and examined the wound. Years of fieldwork had taught him how to improvise with minimal resources. Using clean cloth and basic antiseptic from his pack, he tended to the child. The soldiers watched in silence, some shifting nervously, unsure whether to interfere. Maya observed quietly, her arms crossed. She had seen warriors tend to the wounded before, but a human doing so without command, without fear, without expectation, was unfamiliar. The child calmed under Ethan's care. The whispers in the camp shifted slightly. Perhaps this human was not just strange. Perhaps he was useful. When the child was stabilized, Ethan stepped back. "He'll survive the night," he said simply. Maya's voice was quiet, almost a growl. "You saved him." "I did what anyone would," Ethan replied. His calm, steady smile did not falter. Maya's eyes lingered on him longer than usual. For the first time, she considered that perhaps this human could be more than a prisoner. Perhaps he could be an ally. Ethan returned to his tent that night with a quiet confidence. He had survived the trials, helped save a life, and begun to understand the rhythms of the alien camp. His mind wandered as he lay on the thin mattress, thinking of what tomorrow might bring. Maya's trust would not come easily, and neither would the acceptance of her clan, but he knew he could navigate it. Humans were adaptable, resilient, and clever, and he intended to prove it. Outside, the wind whispered across the outpost, carrying echoes of a future still uncertain. Inside, a warrior woman watched from the shadows, her mind wrestling with thoughts she had not expected. The human smiled in the face of danger, and it unsettled her. More than that, it intrigued her. For the first time, Maya wondered what might happen if this human could not only survive, but thrive. She did not speak the thought aloud. She did not need to. The camp, the soldiers, the alien hierarchy would all feel the ripple of his presence soon enough. Ethan, meanwhile, closed his eyes and allowed himself to rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and new dangers. Yet he felt ready. He had already survived the impossible, and he had done so with calm intelligence and courage. And as he drifted into sleep, the last thought in his mind was simple: a human can smile. Even in the shadow of death, and sometimes, that smile can change everything. The morning air was crisp and sharp as Ethan followed Maya out of the camp. Today was the day of the junta trial that had been whispered about in the camp for years. One that separated the strong from the weak, the clever from the foolish. Ethan's heart remained calm, his steps measured as soldiers of the clan fanned out around them. Each carried weapons, knives, and tools of survival, ready for the wilderness that lay ahead. Maya walked beside him, her posture erect, every motion purposeful. Her blade was strapped to her side, reflecting the early sunlight in sharp glimmers. She did not speak at first, but her eyes flicked toward Ethan repeatedly, watching his movements, his breathing, his reactions. The soldiers behind them whispered, their voices carrying respect, fear, and curiosity. Ethan noted the subtle differences in their accents, their stances, their readiness. He could see that even seasoned warriors were uneasy around him. The terrain was rough. There was jagged rocks and uneven ground stretching for miles. The air smelled of dust and minerals, tinged with faint plant scents that Ethan had never encountered. He had read about survival in alien environments, but this was different. The air was breathable, but the energy of the land felt alive, as though it watched those who walked upon it. Stay close, Maya said finally. Her voice was low, almost a growl. The hunt is dangerous. Many die. It is not meant to be easy. Follow my lead and watch carefully. Trust your instincts. Ethan nodded. I understand. I'll watch and learn. The first challenge of the hunt appeared quickly. A massive predator, covered in dark scales, leapt from the shadows of the rocks. It had glowing eyes and jagged teeth, and it moved faster than any creature Ethan had ever faced. Maya reacted instantly, drawing her blade with fluid motion. She dove to the side, narrowly avoiding the predator's strike. Ethan, using timing and observation, ducked behind a rock, letting the creature pass. Maya landed beside him, breathing steadily. You are not weak, she said. You move differently. Careful. Precise. Do not hesitate. Ethan smiled faintly. Hesitation can kill. I'll remember. They moved forward, navigating narrow ledges, climbing steep inclines, and crossing deep crevices. Ethan relied on his instincts and the lessons he had learned from years in derelict stations and wrecked ships. He used his tools, fashioning makeshift grips with rope and metal scraps, improvising where brute strength would fail. Maya noted each action with interest. He was not strong in the conventional sense, but he adapted quickly, and that was rare among the clan warriors. As they progressed, they encountered another challenge. A series of traps laid by the hunters of the clan to test skill and awareness. Spiked pits, swinging logs, and hidden nets threatened to halt their progress. Maya led the way, guiding Ethan without touching him, her voice a series of short commands and warnings. Ethan observed carefully, analyzing each trap before stepping. When a swinging log threatened to strike him, he timed his movement perfectly, ducking low and sliding past. When a hidden net tried to snare him, he used a stick to trigger it, avoiding entanglement. By midday, it reached a narrow canyon. The sunlight barely penetrated the rocky walls, casting long shadows. The sound of rushing water echoed from below. Maya paused. We are not alone, she said. Stay alert. Ethan scanned the shadows. Small movements betrayed the presence of creatures ahead, fast, agile, and possibly dangerous. He noted the paths, the hiding spots, and the patterns of the terrain. Maya nodded slightly, approving of his awareness. Suddenly, one of the creatures leapt from a ledge, aiming for Ethan. He reacted instinctively, sidestepping, but his foot caught on a loose rock. Maya was there in an instant, grabbing his arm and pulling him back to safety. The predator vanished into the shadows. Do not rely on me to save you, Maya said, her voice low, almost a growl. You must survive yourself. I know, Ethan replied calmly. But I won't leave you either. Maya paused, studying him. You would protect me? She asked. Ethan smiled faintly. If it matters, yes. Her eyes flicked away, but she said nothing. She had been raised to see humans as weak, unreliable, and self-serving. This one was different. His calm, his cleverness, and his loyalty, though untested fully, were not what she expected. The canyon narrowed, and they were forced to move in single file. Rocks shifted beneath their feet, and the sound of water grew louder. Then Maya stepped into a small clearing and froze. Ahead, another predator, larger than the first, blocked their path. Its scales were dark, jagged, and its eyes glowed with predatory intelligence. It hissed, a sound that made the hairs on Ethan's arms stand up. Maya readied her blade. We fight together, she said. Do not hesitate. Watch me. Follow my lead. The predator charged. Maya struck first, slashing to distract it. Ethan used a long stick to trip the creature, slowing it down. The predator turned, jaws snapping. Ethan dodged, rolled, and pushed a rock toward it. Maya struck again, precise and deadly. The predator fell back, injured but not defeated. Ethan noticed a weak point in the scales near its shoulder and threw a small weighted rock with accuracy. The predator collapsed. Maya breathed heavily but did not sheath her blade. She looked at Ethan, her expression unreadable. You are capable, she said. Strange but capable. I told you, Ethan replied with a small smile. I don't intend to die today. The rest of the hunt continued with more challenges. They crossed rivers filled with jagged stones, navigated dense patches of alien vegetation, and climbed cliffs that seemed impossible. Each time, Ethan used observation, timing, and human ingenuity to survive. Maya led the way, testing him, pushing him, and noting his responses. She saved him only when absolutely necessary. But he always learned from it. By evening, they had reached a plateau overlooking the camp. The sun was low, casting long shadows and bathing the rocks in gold and red. Ethan was tired but not exhausted. Maya's eyes softened slightly as she observed him. He had faced the impossible, adapted, survived, and even helped her when she was injured briefly from a misstep. His calm, steady demeanor had earned her attention. Something unspoken passed between them. Respect that neither fully understood yet. "Return to camp," Maya said finally. "The hunt is over for now. You have survived what many do not. You are strange human. I do not understand you, but I see value in you." Ethan nodded. "Thank you. I appreciate it." As they descended back to the camp, some of the younger soldiers watched Ethan with renewed interest. Whispers followed him. Speculation about the human who could survive Maya's hunt. Even some elders who had doubted him began to take notice. A few muttered warnings to Maya, but she ignored them. Back at the camp, Ethan cleaned his gear and attended 2 minor wounds. Soldiers brought food and water, treating him with a cautious respect. Maya remained nearby, observing silently. When he finished, she finally spoke. "You saved lives today. Not just your own," she said. "Even I cannot ignore that." Ethan smiled faintly. "I do what I can. That is all any of us can do." Her eyes lingered on him. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as I thought." "I think most species have strengths," Ethan replied. "Even yours." Maya's lips twitched, almost a smile. She turned and walked away without another word. Ethan watched her go, noting the subtle shift in her behavior. She was still a warrior, still fierce, still deadly, but there was curiosity now. A spark of consideration that had not been there before. That night, Ethan sat by a small fire, looking at the stars above the camp. The events of the day played in his mind, the predator ambushes, the challenges, the moments when Maya saved him, and the quiet acknowledgement of his abilities. He realized that survival was not just about strength or skill, but also about trust, observation, and courage. Somewhere in the shadows, Maya watched him. Her clan would whisper about this human, about this strange calm, and the quiet bravery that he carried like a shield. She did not speak to anyone about it yet, but a thought lingered in her mind. Perhaps this human was not an enemy, but something else entirely. Something rare. Something worth understanding. Ethan closed his eyes and allowed himself to rest. Knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new tests, and perhaps new opportunities. He had survived the impossible today, and he had done so with calm, intelligence, and courage. And somewhere deep inside, he felt that the human spirit, the very quality that had allowed him to smile even in the face of danger, would continue to shape the days ahead. The morning air in the camp was tense. Rumors had spread overnight about a possible challenge to Maya's leadership. Some elders whispered that sparing the human Ethan had been a mistake. They feared he would corrupt her decisions, undermine tradition, and weaken the clan. Ethan sensed it immediately as he moved among the soldiers, gathering supplies for the day. Their glances were cautious, measuring. Some avoided his eyes entirely. Others were curious, watching how he reacted. Maya appeared at the center of the camp, her armor glinting in the sunlight. Her presence was commanding, her posture unyielding. She carried no blade at first, relying instead on the authority of her words. "Gather," she called. "All will witness what must happen today." The soldiers and elders assembled, forming a tight circle around her. Ethan stood beside her, unsure if he should. Maya glanced at him, a subtle nod indicating he was to stay. The air was thick with tension. "You have questioned my decisions," one elder said, stepping forward. His voice was sharp, accusatory. "You have endangered the clan by allowing a human to walk among us freely. We demand judgment." Ethan remained calm, arms relaxed, but eyes alert. Maya's jaw tightened. "I allowed him to survive the trials," she said. "He has proven skill, courage, and loyalty. That is more than many here have done. You endanger us all." Another elder growled. "A human cannot be trusted. He could turn against us at any moment. You have weakened your leadership." The whispers among the soldiers grew louder. Ethan noticed a few shifting uneasily, their loyalties divided. Maya raised her hand, silencing the murmurs. "If judgment is required," she said, "then let it be witnessed. But know this, the hunt has not ended, and our clan faces enemies beyond these walls. Today, loyalty and courage will be tested, not mere words." Before the elders could respond, a loud, harsh cry echoed from the perimeter of the camp. Soldiers shouted, and alarm bells rang. Shadows moved among the rocks and tents. A rival clan had arrived, attacking while the leadership was distracted. Chaos erupted immediately. Soldiers scrambled to defend their positions. Weapons were drawn, and Ethan instinctively grabbed a sturdy piece of metal, ready to help. Maya's eyes met his briefly. "Do not hesitate," she said. The first wave of attackers was swift and brutal. Ethan ducked behind a low wall, observing the movements and patterns of the enemy. Using a combination of logic and instinct, he threw small rocks to trigger traps left by the clan, creating barriers and distractions. His actions allowed a few soldiers to regroup and counterattack. Maya moved like a storm through the battlefield, her blades slicing and striking with precision. She blocked blows, parried attacks, and guided her warriors with short, commanding shouts. Ethan followed her movements carefully, noting how she positioned herself, the angles she used, and the way she calculated risk. He mirrored her approach when possible, using traps, timing, and observation rather than brute force. One of the rival soldiers managed to sneak behind Maya and strike. Ethan reacted instantly, pushing the attacker away and saving her from a potentially fatal wound. Maya's eyes widened for the briefest moment before returning to the fight. She did not speak, but her trust in him deepened silently. Throughout the battle, Ethan improvised with scavenged tools and simple engineering. A broken drone from a previous salvage job became a scout, hovering over enemy positions and transmitting their movements. A pile of metal scraps turned into makeshift barricades. Every action he took saved lives and shifted the balance in favor of Maya's clan. The rival clan pressed harder, using surprise and aggression. Maya led a small group to flank them, while Ethan guided another set of soldiers using clever tactics. Together, human ingenuity and alien skill began to turn the tide amid the chaos. Some of the elders who had opposed Ethan's presence attempted to seize weapons and retreat. Maya's voice cut through the noise. "You will not abandon your people," she roared. "Stand and fight." Ethan moved to intercept them, blocking their escape routes and demonstrating leadership in the heat of battle. The soldiers, both loyal and hesitant, followed his example. Inspired by his calm and steady presence, minutes stretched into hours. Sweat, dust, and the metallic temps of blood filled the air. Ethan saved soldiers more than once, using quick thinking to prevent ambushes. Maya fought tirelessly, her strength and skill unmatched. But she relied on Ethan's guidance and human logic to anticipate moves she could not predict. Finally, with a coordinated effort, the rival clan was driven back. The attackers fled into the rocky wilderness, leaving the camp battered but alive. Soldiers cheered, some collapsing from exhaustion. Maya stood at the center, chest heaving, eyes scanning the battlefield. She looked at Ethan. "You were invaluable," she said. Her voice was low, almost reverent. "I underestimated humans." Ethan smiled faintly. "We all have strengths," he said. "I just hope we survived." The elders who had plotted against him were exposed during the battle. Some had collaborated with the rival clan, hoping to weaken Maya and seize control. Their betrayal was clear. The soldiers captured them, and Maya's judgment was swift but measured. She did not kill them outright, but she stripped them of rank and banished them from the inner circle. The camp began to recover. Fires were rebuilt, weapons repaired, and the wounded tended to. Ethan moved among the soldiers, offering advice and helping wherever he could. Maya watched silently, noting how he continued to act without seeking recognition or power. That evening, the camp gathered around the central fire. Maya spoke to the clan, her voice carrying authority and strength. Today our clan faced enemies who sought to divide us. We survived because of skill, courage, and unity. We survived because even a human, a stranger among us, stood with us and fought alongside us. The soldiers whispered among themselves, some in disbelief, some in admiration. Ethan remained quiet, letting Maya's words carry the meaning. You have proven loyalty, Maya continued, her eyes sweeping over the assembly. And you have proven courage. You will walk among us freely, human, as an ally of the clan. Let no one question your place again. Ethan nodded slightly, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had survived the impossible, helped save lives, and earned the trust of a warrior he had once thought untouchable. Later that night, Maya approached him privately. The firelight reflected in her eyes, revealing a mix of respect, curiosity, and something unspoken. You changed the outcome today, she said. Not by strength alone, but by seeing what others could not see. That is rare. I just did what I could, Ethan replied, still calm, still measured. You are unlike any human I have met, Maya said softly. I do not understand you, but I see value. You have earned a place here not as a captive, but as something more. Ethan allowed himself a small smile. Thank you, Maya. That means more than you know. The camp settled into quiet after the long day. Soldiers tended to their wounds, repaired equipment, and whispered about the human who had fought alongside their warrior leader. Maya remained vigilant, though, standing at the edge of the firelight and watching the camp with sharp eyes. She had seen bravery before, but Ethan's calm, clever, and loyal nature unsettled her in ways she could not yet name. Ethan found a quiet spot near the edge of the camp and sat, reflecting on the events of the day. He had survived the hunt, the betrayal, and the battle. He had proven himself in a culture that prized strength above all else, and he had done so without raising his voice, without arrogance, and without fear. Somewhere in the shadows, Maya watched him again. Her thoughts were complicated, filled with grudging admiration and curiosity. The human smiled in the face of danger, saved lives, and earned respect without even trying. She had always believed that fear and dominance were the only ways to control, to survive. Ethan had shown her otherwise. As the night deepened and the stars twinkled overhead, the camp breathed a collective sigh of relief. Alliances had shifted, trust had been tested, and survival had been proven. Maya knew that the days ahead would continue to challenge them, but for the first time, she considered a future where humans and her people could stand together. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the exhaustion of the day, but also a quiet pride. He had survived not just by skill, but by observing, thinking, and acting with calm purpose. He had earned trust, protected lives, and begun to bridge the gap between species. And he knew that the human spirit, the courage to stand, the willingness to help, the quiet strength to smile in the face of danger would continue to shape the days ahead. The morning after the battle was quiet, almost serene. Smoke from the previous day's skirmish had cleared, leaving the camp bathed in soft sunlight. Soldiers moved deliberately, repairing weapons, reinforcing defenses, and tending to the wounded. The rival clan had vanished into the wilderness, leaving Maya's people in control of the territory. The elders who had opposed Ethan's presence were silent, their power diminished after yesterday's events. Ethan moved among the camp, observing quietly. He had learned to notice details others missed: the fatigue in soldiers' movements, the subtle injuries left untreated, the morale that needed tending. He helped where he could, distributing food, reinforcing barricades, and offering advice. Though he carried no rank, his presence was respected, and the soldiers had begun to see him as more than just a human among aliens. Maya approached him, her steps silent on the hardened ground. She wore lighter armor today, her blade sheathed. Her expression was unreadable. But Ethan noticed a softness in her eyes that had not been there before. You did well yesterday, she said. More than well. You changed the outcome of the battle. You saved lives, human, not just your own. Ethan shrugged lightly. I did what anyone should. Strategy, timing, awareness. It works with or without strength. Sometimes brains save more than brawn. Maya regarded him silently for a moment. You are strange. Calm when others panic, careful when others rush. I have seen warriors die from fear or arrogance. You have neither. I've learned that panic solves nothing, Ethan replied, and arrogance. Well, that usually gets you killed faster. Her lips twitched almost a smile. Perhaps humans have more than weakness, she admitted. Perhaps you proved that. The camp's activity continued, but a sense of order was returning. Soldiers began sharing stories of the battle, speaking in hushed tones about the human who had survived the hunt, aided in the fight, and earned Maya's respect. Ethan kept to the sidelines, observing the interactions, noting alliances and grudges, and learning more about the clan than he ever expected. By midday, Maya summoned him to a private meeting. They walked along a narrow path overlooking a rocky cliff, the wind carrying the scent of dust and distant vegetation. You have earned a place among us, Maya said, her voice low. Not as a captive. Not as a curiosity. You have earned respect. That is rare for a human. I did what I had to do, Ethan replied simply. I don't need recognition. I only need to survive and help where I can. Her eyes softened slightly. You are different. Most humans would flee, beg, or fight recklessly. You calculate, you adapt, and you act with courage. You are reliable. Ethan smiled faintly. Thank you. I hope to continue proving that. Maya's gaze shifted to the camp below. The clan respects me as their leader, but your presence has changed something. You have shown them that humans can be allies, not enemies. That is powerful. I only do what I can, Ethan said again, though inwardly he understood the significance. Trust between species was rare, and earning it could shape the future of the clan. They spent the afternoon walking, observing soldiers training, repairing, and interacting. Ethan offered suggestions for a more efficient organization, using logic and pattern recognition. Maya listened carefully, noting his insight. Her soldiers began to approach him cautiously, asking questions, seeking advice, and even practicing techniques under his guidance. The bond between human and alien was growing, quiet but steady, and it reshaped the camp in subtle ways. That evening a council was held. The elders who had opposed Ethan's presence were present, though subdued. Maya addressed them with authority and clarity. You questioned my decision to allow a human among us. Yesterday, you saw the result. Not only did he survive our trials, but he also contributed to the safety of the clan. He is capable, he is loyal, and he has earned a place here, the elders murmured, some grudgingly acknowledging the truth, others silent in defeat. Maya's decision was final, and the human's presence was now recognized openly. Ethan remained calm, silently accepting the acknowledgement but saying nothing further. Later that night, Ethan found himself near the edge of the camp, watching the stars above. The events of the past day's trials, hunts, battles, and the slow building trust played through his mind. He understood that survival was more than physical skill. It was understanding, patience, courage, and the willingness to act with intelligence. He had earned trust, earned respect, and had begun to bridge the gap between species. Maya approached quietly, standing beside him without speaking at first. The stars reflected faintly in her eyes, and Ethan sensed her thoughts were distant, complicated, and reflective. You survived, she said finally, and you have changed things here. Not by strength alone, but by your mind, your courage, your choices. Ethan nodded. I did what I had to do. That is all any of us can do. She studied him, her expression unreadable. You are unlike any human I have met. You smile when others would panic. You act when others hesitate. That is rare, valuable, and perhaps necessary. Ethan offered a small smile. I believe every species has value, even yours. Her lips twitched again, faintly. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps humans are not as fragile as we thought. The night passed quietly, Soldiers rested, the wounded healed under careful hands, and the camp regained a sense of order and safety. Ethan slept lightly, alert even in rest, knowing that survival depended on both awareness and courage. In the days that followed, Ethan's presence became a symbol within the camp. Soldiers, both young and seasoned, began to emulate his calm, measured approach. Conflicts among clansmen decreased, efficiency improved, and the trust between humans and aliens grew. Maya watched all of this silently, recognizing the quiet influence he had. One afternoon, Maya approached him with a new task. The outpost requires fortification. Supplies, defenses, and patrols must be organized efficiently. I want your input. Ethan studied the layout carefully, noting weak points, patrol paths, and potential strategies for defense. He worked alongside the soldiers, demonstrating methods to improve safety, efficiency, and coordination. Slowly, the camp transformed, not just in strength, but in unity. Through it all, the bond between Ethan and Maya deepened, quiet but meaningful. They sparred in training, discussed tactics, and shared knowledge of their respective species. Though their languages were different and their cultures distinct, a mutual understanding emerged, based on respect, shared experience, and trust earned through action. One evening, after a long day of training and planning, they stood at the edge of the camp once more. The sun set in brilliant hues of red and orange, casting long shadows across the rocky landscape. Soldiers moved below, engaged in drills and repairs, while Ethan and Maya observed silently. "You have changed the clan," Maya said softly. "Not just by your actions, but by your presence. They see now that trust can cross species, that courage is not limited to one form, that strength comes in many ways." Ethan looked at her, smiling faintly. "I've done what I could. The rest is theirs to embrace." She studied him, her expression thoughtful. "Perhaps there is more to humanity than I realized. Perhaps. The galaxy is not as divided as I believed." The wind blew softly around them, carrying the scent of earth, stone, and distant vegetation. Ethan felt a sense of calm satisfaction. He had survived trials, proven his worth, and earned respect not through dominance, but through intelligence, courage, and quiet strength. The stars began to shine, one by one, above the outpost. Soldiers rested, the camp was fortified, and peace, however temporary, settled over the land. Maya and Ethan stood together, observing, reflecting, and silently acknowledging the bond that had formed between them. It was not merely survival that mattered, but understanding, trust, and the quiet power of a human who could smile in the face of danger and inspire courage in others. Ethan turned to Maya. "The clan is stronger now," he said. "Stronger because they survived, because they worked together, and because trust was earned. That is more powerful than any blade." Maya nodded, the faintest of smiles crossing her lips. "You are right. Perhaps humans and warriors are not so different after all." The night deepened, and the camp slept peacefully under the stars. Ethan's presence had reshaped the clan, had inspired respect, and had bridged the gap between species. Maya's trust, once cautious, had become firm. And as the first light of dawn approached, the human and the warrior woman stood side by side, ready for whatever challenges the galaxy might bring next. They had survived the impossible together, and in doing so had forged a bond that could not be broken easily. The human's calm strength and the alien warrior's skill combined to create a force greater than either, alone a symbol of unity, courage, and the enduring power of understanding. And as the sun rose over the outpost, Ethan allowed himself a small, quiet thought, sometimes a human smile. Steady and calm in the face of danger could change everything.